guys, I'm here with Chace, Barber.
You betcha.
CEO of Edison Motors, and if you guys haven't seen the video from about 8 months ago, we did a full kind of once-over Topsy, and this time around, after a year, 8 months of driving and swearing and figuring things out, we're going to do an everything wrong with Topsy. Here we go. All right, so if you haven't seen this series of videos, we do these all the time. Everything wrong with engines, trucks, whatever. And it's not that we pick on things, it's that nothing is perfect. Except for this thing, you built it 100% and it's perfect and you're going full out into production, right?
That's right, yeah. As soon as you build something, it's just 100% perfect. We're just gonna say what every other EV company has said. Don't worry, our vehicle is perfect. Don't look behind the curtain. No, we're going to lift that curtain up and we're going to show you all the lessons we've learned on this, things that we've gotten wrong, things that we fixed, things that we're... So basically, this is a proof of concept prototype. This is the first of its kind hybrid electric truck ever built like this. These are the things we learned and are fixing going into the next trucks.
So starting at the back here, I remember you telling me that you put the motors facing each other, essentially having one axle backwards and one forward because it's electric and you can make them spin either way, right?
Yes, an electric motor spins either direction. However, once we did that, the programming wasn't right. So this one still thinks it's in reverse and it's trying to say, hey, I don't want to do 100 kilometers an hour in reverse. And the manufacturer locked that down to their TCU. So we had to go to China to the manufacturers that actually make the electric motor, because turns out everything is made in China now. And they had to reprogram it. And now it can go forward because it reflashed. But we have issues with the communication.
So the biggest problem is they're 2-speed axles. But when the company designed this axle, they're like, nobody needs to do 70 mile an hour in reverse. So there is no 70 mile in reverse, which is what we're trying to do, is to tell it to go in reverse. Physically, it can do it. The computer itself cannot. The TCU cannot. So, but to get around that, they put the reverse axle in second gear all the time. And now the back axle shifts from first to second gear. And now it's a little bit of communication issues because they're doing different things.
That has been a nightmare of communication issues. So what we've learned from that is we weren't happy with the axle design. Even though this was something that we worked on, we had developed with this heavy weight for us. We looked around, and since then there's been a better axle on the market. That's that one we flew over to China to go inspect and see. And now it's dual motors, one motor driving each wheel. There doesn't have that 2-speed rear end. There's no gear changes to change. So overall, it's going to be a lot tighter, a lot better package. We learned that these e-axles, although they're great e-axles, weren't the way to go.
So the reason they are facing each other is so that you built a logging truck and you want to push the sticks and that under the nice round front cover, which would be the back cover, and then protect your electric motors. You get stuck up in the snow, inside the mud, all of that's protected. But we should have had the axle flip. Now, can't flip the axle, I see, because you've got a bunch of components in the way, right?
Yeah, I welded the hanger and everything else on, and now that would be a fundamental rechange with things that are mounted in front. And it's just, I wish we didn't. Like, it was the best of intentions. You protect the electric motor, so when you're going through the mud, the differential housing pushes the mud down. But it's just been a nightmare for our programmers to deal with. So this was definitely a mistake that I wouldn't do going forward. So one of the other things that I don't like about these axles, you'll notice that it's unsprung weight, but it's unbalanced unsprung weight. So you got the rear end of the axle, and then the electric motor sticks out in front of you, and it's just bolted onto your regular differential. Now as you're hitting bumps, you move that electric motor all the way out there. So you've increased your leverage from your fulcrum point. So the harder it bounces, the farther out it is, the more stress it's going to put on the top. With the dual motor, we've condensed that. We brought both of those motors in. So there's nothing out there. It's now brought into there. So it's a lot more compact and it's a balanced axle going forward, just because you can see when you're bouncing, like, you got to know that being out there can't be as great as being tightened in.
And that's the first generation. It's like, let's work with something that we got, cast housings, pull up the ring and pinion and stick in an electric motor, right? And then now it's like, hey, there's enough of these trucks out there. Let's make a specific purpose-built dual axle motor.
One of the other things we did find that did work, though, at least on air ride, we've been doing a lot of off-road testing. The batteries have been stable. They've been just cushioned on the air ride. We didn't use the batteries as cross members themselves, as we heard one other company did.
So yeah, you're a trucker, that's why.
Okay, one of the other things here that's definitely getting changed on the next truck is we right now have Hendrickson rubber block over walking beam. I knew it was going to be rough, and I said it was going to be rough, and the whole point was it testing everything and shaking everything, and it was rough, and it's going to rattle and beat everything up. I'm not going to sell that, though, because after driving it, it hurts me emotionally. Like, every time you hit just a series of washboards, potholes, and it shakes the whole truck, and it bounces up, and... Like, there's times where I've been launched out of the driver's seat while bobtailing because of how hard the suspension hits.
So 8-bag?
Probably not 8-bag.
No, 4-bag?
Yeah, 4-bag. 8-bag's owned by Kenworth, so that's proprietary to Kenworth.
Okay.
I'm also not a big fan of the 8-bag off-road.
We've got our compressor. That is your high voltage compressor. Did that work out good?
High voltage compressor was good.
Okay.
There has been a little fault or two that we've had on the starting. For some reason, when it's cold, the odd time it'll throw a fault code and not want to start. So basically, if it's really cold out in the mornings and you go to start it and it hasn't been ran before, sometimes it'll throw a fault code. So we're just trying to figure out why it throws that fault code to fix that. If it's running warm, it runs fine. So
right. And it might be the compressor, maybe it was drawn too much, but that's unrelated to the drivability of it, right?
That's right.
Right. I'm amazed at how quick it does air up. And we see you sitting on a truck staring at a screen. Well, it's just because the compressor's running and you're trying to release your brakes, right? Everybody's waiting for you to move. But all right, so your batteries, are they going to explode?
No. I know that is one of the biggest concern, and we've seen in the news and like Nikola with their trucks lighting on fire a few times. One of the big things is we don't use lithium ion, which is subject to thermal runaway. We use lithium iron, but that caused some other issues in there when it came time to charging, is that your C rating is relatively limited. So the C rating is your capacity and how much you can charge. These lithium iron batteries have about a 2C, so 200 kilowatt hour batteries. 250 kilowatt means we can only charge with 500 kilowatts. Now, the problem is if you're regenning and you're running 500, but your generator's running. So imagine you're going down the road, you're putting in 250 kilowatt hours, 300 kilowatt hours with your generator into your batteries, then your regen tries to send 500. You can over that. That causes an SE fault. Truck says, hey, I don't like that. Shuts the system off for protection. Okay, got to reset the computer. So looking around, they found LMFAO batteries. LMFAO batteries are very stable, but they allow us to go up to 5C. So they're not quite at the C capacity of lithium ion, but they're incredibly stable, and they can take the bigger C. So if we have 200 kilowatt hours worth of batteries, that means that with 5C, we can do almost a megawatt of charging. So if you're regenning 500 and you're charging at 250 or at 750, you're still good on your batteries with room to spare. I think something we should talk about back here is, so if we pull away this little rubber cover that we've used to hide things, you'll notice under there, it's relatively ugly with wires. Yeah. It's not attractive in Topsy. Sure, for a show, we can put that on there. There's a problem. We did everything on this without CAT. So there was different people in charge of high voltage, was a different charge of low voltage, which was a different guy from the cooling system, which was a different guy from the airlines. And everyone just started running their lines with no central planning whatsoever. So when you look at Topsy, there's airlines going over high voltage lines because it was built in the order that the guy was working on it in that day in the shop. And it's all layered like a freaking wiring tiramisu.
So what are you guys doing to counteract that in the new ones?
So on the new ones, we've actually got Jacob over there. He is working on the SolidWorks, laying out all the lines, placing the lines and saying, okay, high voltage is going here, this component's going here, that component's going there.
I thought he was just staring at the Microsoft screensaver with the pipes.
Might be. That's probably how he's doing his routing.
All right, headache rack. Anything you change in here? What's going on here?
Headache rack is It works. I think for a retrofit kit, a headache rack still makes sense.
Okay.
But what we found with the incentives on new EVs is that you get an EV incentive if you buy a brand new plug-in electric. You don't get an incentive if you retrofit it. And in BC, it's $150,000 to $300,000 incentive. It makes it cheaper to build new. So if we're just going to build a new one, we've already got a headache rack done, but I think I'd put it in the cab. It doesn't make sense right now to run it out into the cab, back into here, back into the cab. Like if it was a retrofit, yes, but if it's a new build, it caused a lot of extra wires going back and forth and around and round. I wouldn't do it. I'd relocate it into the cab on the next trucks and put it in its own box.
Okay. Is there cooling in the
There is.
rack? Okay. And so what happens to that?
The cooling will just go into the back of the truck cab.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And because of that, one of the other things too, though, is that when we built the headache rack, even though there was room, we forgot 2 components. So now we have an extra box here that has components that should have been in the headache rack because we built the headache rack, put it in there, and then somebody walked out with a 3-in-1, said, "Hey guys, did you put this in there?" And we said, "No, we didn't." So that's now in an extra box. And then because nobody was measuring or talking to anybody, these wires are now coming out of the side of the headache rack, which now interfere and come out with a crappy angle to the box. So like that wasn't great.
Yeah, but that's prototype stuff. That's whatever. That's not a huge deal.
No. I mean, realistically, it would have been fine if this was just 2 inches taller.
Okay.
Or the box was 2 inches lower. But
4 hockey pucks.
Yep. No, honestly though, like that's why we're doing a lot more work. So we started putting everything into SolidWorks, CAD programs, and we started mapping it out, running the wires. It looks way cleaner now. Another one too, because of the higher C capacity, we've been able to get rid of 2 batteries. So if you guys remember, there's 2 batteries in here. We'll be able to get rid of that, which means that we can make this a normal step. Because right now, we've had from some of our customers, they're like, "Hey, that's not the most driver-friendly egress and ingress. Can you just make a normal step like a normal truck?" Yes, because we have the LMO batteries, we have the higher capacity, so we don't need as many batteries to operate as a hybrid, which is also going to reduce about 500 pounds of weight. So we'll save about 500 pounds more of weight, and it'll be easier to step in and out.
Nice.
All right, guys, I want to just take a couple seconds. We're not doing an ad. I just want to thank everyone that's invested with Edison Motors. You guys know we don't have venture capital. We don't have that kind of money. We told them no. We are invested and owned by the fans like you who are watching this video. You guys supported us all the way when it was just an idea, through building Carl to building Topsy, and now as we go back into our next production run, taking this next step. So all of you that supported us, invested with us, thank you so much. We appreciate it more than you know. Anyways, back to the video.
Nice. And all right, now we're getting to some wiring. Now, what are all the basic components that you need? We've got BMS, PDU.
I am really happy. This is something that we've upgraded already. So our first wiring harness was relatively crude. This one, we went with basically the same bus. You'd find this in like a Tiger Cat Feller Buncher or something like that. It's more of a heavy equipment panel. The thing is, I don't like doing things under the dash. I don't like opening little covers. So right now, this is cover off of it. You would have a cover for production. But everything is clearly labeled. It says right in here, cab light, strobe light, headlights, left turn, right turn. Everything is labeled in its spot, easy to trace, goes right into these MVECs. This was a big thing that it sucked, but we've already upgraded it even before production truck.
Is any of this going to be simplified? It looks pretty complicated.
So what would simplify a lot of this is moving that headache rack into the cab. Right now, we have a lot of wires that go from here into the headache rack, back into here.
Oh.
We can simplify a ton of these by moving all of those electronic components into here.
Okay.
And then it'll just be one wire. It's going to have a plug that you plug on the outside of the cab. Easy to change wiring harness going forward. Because right now, the wires have to go down here, back through the cab. So if you have to replace a wire due to corrosion, you've got to feed it all the way through. With everything being self-contained in the cab, easy to service. We have noticed when like, oh, we got to change out a wire, run a wire, that this is not great. Like this is the original. Everybody did something at the same time. There's air lines mixed with electrical,
Yeah. Okay. So what's going on in here?
So a lot of this was built under a test thing. So there is a risk that you could open this up while it's live, stick your finger into there and shock yourself. Obviously that is not acceptable for production. So we've condensed this down into a box. It's everything in there goes into basically a box like this. It's all protected. You can put your finger wherever you want unless you actually physically get the special key and open the box. And it's all condensed down into something about this big now. So everything you see there goes into a box about a third of the size. It's going to be protected. It's just a lot better design on that. Here is Keaton, the head of our electrical design team. I'm the truck guy. I can explain everything on the mechanical side. So I don't butcher it and we don't have a lot of comments in the comment. You got that term wrong. Here is Keaton.
So this entire headache rack, as Chace has already mentioned, is going to get condensed down to what we're calling our power electronics cabinet. Now, currently, all of our power electronics, they basically take up about over half the height of the cab. What we're going to do is bring that down to about here because we're able to cut down the number of power electronics by about half. Currently, what we have is 2 DC to DC converters. Their job is to basically regulate power flow. So when something comes in from the batteries or the generator, it determines, or the axles when they're regenning, those determine like, hey, where is that going? Is that going to like a resistive load bank? Is that going to a generator? Is that going to the batteries and whatnot? We are getting rid of those on the next truck because of our LMO batteries. They have such high C rating that they're able to handle a lot of these spike loads that these guys filter out. So those guys are completely gone. This guy right here, this is the brake chopper for the resistive load bank. We're not using that. We've never used it. We've never actually even had a resistive load bank backed up. Every problem that this was put in here to solve, we've managed to fix with code tuning. Both of these guys, these are generator controllers. So they take the power from the generator, convert it to DC power, and that flows to the axles or to the batteries as necessary. On the next truck, we're going to have half of those. And one other thing is, since we're getting rid of these DC-DC converters, this entire cabinet, which is just 2 inductors to handle the smoothing of those things' voltages, completely gone. This is completely empty, and that's actually where we're going to put our low voltage control stuff.
So everything you've seen in the back of the truck there behind the driver's seat is now just going to go in there. That gets shrunk down, this gets lower, that gets tighter with no exposed wires that kids can come and stick their finger in, and that whole box is going to be gone.
Imagine being so like having the muscle memory to open your headache rack to grab a chain binder and you just grab one of those wires. Yeah, that'd be bad.
It would be bad. It would be bad.
So that's something that could be wrong with Topsy.
Yeah. Yes, Topsy can electrocute you if you put your fingers in the wrong spot. Probably not safe for production.
Nice.
All right, so back in the cab here, we have a whole bunch of components that are powered by the wiring bus that Chace walked you through. So these guys all here, they're basically called MVECs. These are what handle, talk to the computer and show you what relays are activated and which fuses are either blown or ideally not blown. So they're all powered by either 24 or 12 volt, and then they all talk over CAN. What they talk to is this bad boy right here, which is our VCU. It's an MC1050 from Danfoss, and it has an expansion unit because we have so many components. The computer that you see right beneath it, it's what's called a TCU, and that's from our nice, wonderful axles back there, and basically it sends a lot of the commands and handles a lot of the high-end math for those who do what they need to do. So these guys, we're not going to be using the exact same TCUs because we're changing out axles, but these are going to remain out of house. For Topsy, this guy was all programmed by Flowdraulic, and they did an excellent job. However, working on excellent code from someone else is harder than working on the worst code that you wrote yourself. So it's very important that we bring that in-house and we write code that
you understand.
Yeah, exactly. We understand, and that way when something goes wrong, we don't have to spend 4 hours trying to figure out what block is causing the issue. We know it's like, hey, that's my bad. I put a 6 when it should have been a 2.
Right, and you don't have full access to all of them, right? You can do so much with your software, but you can only do.
Yeah, so on the future truck, and right now, because we just recently gained the source code for this guy, we have full access. But the TCU is pretty much, until we start building our own axle controllers, it's going to remain out of house. So that does mean that even on the future trucks, there's going to be internal problems that we are going to have to solve externally. But the way we get around that is we make sure we control as much of the truck as possible. We have an excellent engineering team or a design team, and we have an excellent products that are very reliable. So that's one of the things we learned about Topsy. When Chace does his walkthrough, he pointed out all the things that we're not too happy with. We make sure we replace them with things that we are happy with and that we can work with. Right. And then over the next 10 years, we see what we can even continue to bring in-house.
Nice. And the cab, did you fix anything about it being ugly?
We're going to go with a twin seater.
Yeah. Okay.
Honestly, we've got two different ways of doing it. So I like the big high hood, which is why we put a big high hood on Topsy.
Yeah.
But then we made this cab for increased visibility because some people wanted the visibility. But turns out people that really want visibility don't want a high hood, and people that want a high hood don't care about the visibility. Because after I'm driving it, I would honestly prefer to have the twin seater. Yeah. I can see where both corners of my front bumper are.
Yeah.
But I'm a truck driver. I know where both corners of my bumper are. I've never had an issue with that. So we're just going to build a traditional cab, this twin seater. We had a customer that said, no, I like everything about the driveline, but I don't want that center seating. Make a twin seater. And we have had another customer that said, well, get rid of the high hood and make it more visible. So we're going to make this cab with the visibility for that customer because they are operators. They've got equipment on the back. They go to site. They operate their stuff. They're not drivers.
Right.
That's not their profession. They're equipment operators while they're on site. So just two different cabs. We've also decided to not make our own cab.
Okay.
Outsource that.
So
and you guys been following, everything on this truck was done with angle grinders and stick welders. One of the things we got cautioned for is we need a lower lip jam. They technically said, okay, that's good enough to pass it. There is a little lip there, but we need a bigger door jam.
Yeah. It squeaks and rattles a little bit.
It does.
So leave that into the professionals.
Yep.
So the problem is when you're driving it, when I noticed it, when you're driving it, it's so quiet, all you hear is squeaks and rattles.
That is the biggest issue with this truck. With no generator, it doesn't make any noise. So any little squeak, rattle, pop, ding, you hear it and it just drives you nuts. So a little bit, even if the door just flutters a little bit, that's enough to drive you insane. So the quality of the cab has to be an 11 out of 10. We reached out to expert cab builders and said, okay, this is the final design. We were able to do that because now we're doing more things in CAD. We're able to design more things on the computer. This was not designed on the computer. I know, shocking. This was done by me and my buddy holding up square tubing and say, tack it there.
Nice. Generator underneath the cab. A few issues with that?
We have had quite a few issues with that generator under the cab. Dan Foss sent us the wrong one. They said they were going to send the right one, and they never did, so we've been waiting on a right one. So basically, we ordered a T2000. They sent a 1500, which means that we've had to reprogram the generator. It was an SAE half housing that needs to be adapted to an SAE1. Every single diesel motor ever made for the last 40 years has an SAE1 housing.
For transport trucks.
For semi-trucks, yes. Yeah, pickup trucks are different. But for semi-truck engines, it's always been SAE1. Dan Foss decided to make an SAE half. Even though we told them that it was going into one with a half, they sent one into a motor with a one.
That's where the break in communication is, because you just said you told them that it was a half.
Yeah,
but it's a one. The problem is that generators. Was this generator meant for a smaller engine that could have had a half?
No. The only thing we found, the most recent thing we found with a half was a Detroit 12V98 made in 1984. That was the last one I found.
92.
92?
12V92?
12V92?
I don't think they made a 12V98. There's going to be some nerds out there.
Yeah, probably 12V92.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not great with numbers. Yeah, but that old Detroit was the only one. So we had to run flex plates. We had a different adapter with a special plate to attach it. It was a nightmare. And it's still the wrong one. It's not even the one we ordered. And to meet the voltage requirements now with the output, because it's picky on voltage, we should be running at 1800 RPM. That's where the motor is most efficient. We're having to run this down at 1400 RPM, which means that we're not in our most efficient band width, so we're not burning our fuel as efficiently as we could because that Danfoss generator is not the right one for this motor.
It's lugging. It's just like, oh, come on, just rev me out before you shift.
Yeah.
So that brings me to the cat. Let's connect it to the cat. How's everything with the cat? I see you got better cooling now.
Yeah, we've got some more fans. So this cooling setup is not the one we want. You don't want to put your EV cooling behind your big cooling because you're just forcing the hot air from the generator cooling side through the EV cooling side, which is heating up the EV side. So from now on, if you see in that new motor, there's two different sides. There's one side is going to be all EV, one side's generator, and they're stacked longer in depth. So we're not going to be pushing hot air into the cool air.
Right. So that's a custom radiator that we're designing to take care of that issue.
If custom, you mean just two radiators placed next to each other, yes.
Oh, but they're skinny and tall, right?
Yeah, they make those.
They make them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So still universal parts. Nothing
Still
custom made.
universal
Okay.
parts.
Right on. Happy with the C9?
Honestly, I'm happy with the C9, but I'm looking forward to the Scania. We're switching over to the Scania. One of the big things was lead time. With the cats, we were told that it was 50 weeks lead time in order to get a new one. Like, that's not acceptable. I can't wait a year when somebody orders a truck to put a motor in. Called up Scania, and they said, yeah, we can have one. We got 4 in shop.
Come get it.
Come get it.
Yeah.
One of the things I do like about Scania is that they can meet Tier 4 final emissions without having the DPF. So no DPF. So no diesel particulate filter, no regen needed. In my mind, more availability. I've heard nothing but good things about reliability from the Europeans, and no DPF. That's the way to go.
And for parts, they've never been able to not fulfill an overnight order, correct?
Yeah, we were told by Scania that they've never missed a single overnight parts delivery.
Nice.
That's in North America?
That's in North America.
Yeah. So the engine, me kind of working at the front half of this week, kind of noticed another issue that this engine came out of a truck.
Yes.
But it's going into a truck, and you probably told them we need a truck engine we need an engine for our truck.
We did. We did say we needed an engine for a truck.
But you need a generator engine for your truck because the tune in this is wrong. So we're taking care of that this week.
Basically, yeah. We the way we ran this one is we tricked it into running into PTO mode. So we told it like, hey, you're running a PTO at 1400 RPM.
Yeah.
What we need to do is get an actual ECM out of a generator and get a proper generator ECM put in. But it's been working so far like this.
Yeah.
Is it as efficient as it could be? No. But
especially ramp in and ramp out, stuff like that. You can be a lot more aggressive on a generator than you can on a PTO shaft, right? So, and I think there's like safeties in there to not snap U-joints and things like that. Hood stack? You going with a hood stack?
No. Well, I like the hood stack because that's kind of cool. We probably will not be selling trucks with a giant exhaust stack sitting right in front of the driver, like a skidder. Turns out customers are like, yeah, don't put an exhaust stack directly in front of where I'm sitting. But like, I thought it was kind of cool because it's like a bulldozer. Turns out not a lot of people dig the hood stack.
That's younger than 19 years old, yeah. Okay, so what's cool about this is data. You're just learning so much, but at some point you're chasing your tail trying to fix things that on components which you're not even using on the next builds, right? So what is the plan going forward now? Like you've done a couple loads, I've driven it a bunch, and again, more codes, more data. But yeah, at some point, what's kind of the plan going forward? We can't keep doing this.
Well, now that we've learned the things that we've learned, we've decided which parts we're keeping, what parts we're changing. It's time to start building the next trucks. We've hauled some loads. We've driven this thing around. We got the data on generator, running, operations, controls. I feel pretty confident with everything we've learned on this to start ordering those new parts for the new trucks, build the new trucks so the way we want them, the improved versions. That way we're not dogs chasing our own tails on components that we've already changed out. Like,
right.
How far do you want to go in programming an axle to work flawlessly if you aren't using those axles anymore on the next build? If you've already solved some of these problems with better engineering,
Right.
Why don't we start building the next trucks? We'll keep driving Topsy, we'll keep running Topsy, but we don't need to get Topsy to 100% perfect, ready to deliver to customers, because it's not the version that's getting delivered to customers.
Right. So that's the nice thing about what we're actually doing is we're showing you every step of the way. And this is part of that is now we're going to build half a dozen trucks or so and give them to customers that we have good relationships with and tell them, okay, try the trucks, tell us what you like, what you don't like. You understand that they're still new, but the concept works. The concept works that you've got onboard generator and you can pull massive loads silently. And that is basically what Topsy is.
We've got the important numbers. We've hooked onto 150, 160,000 pounds. We've seen how much power is needed to move that and get that up to 100 kilometers an hour. We've seen what the generator takes for charging, what the regen actually holds back at. We've got all the information we've needed. It works. It's just, why spend all the time fine-tuning the axles to getting it to 100% if we're putting in new axles into the customers?
Right. So the theory works. The theory is proven. And the nice thing is that a lot of the parts that are in the semis are now also going to be in the pickup trucks as well. So my decision to take on building the kits for the pickup trucks was always dependent on Topsy working. If you can get Topsy working, you can get the kit working in the smaller truck. If this thing doesn't do anything that it can't, or can't pull a load, or can't do anything, then it's like, well, then I can step back from the program and say, well, it's kind of your baby, right? But I feel confident that you can make it work, and I feel confident that I can make those kits in the trucks to do the retrofit kits in the majority of pickup trucks. It's going to take a while, but I see it being possible. So.
Oh, I think we've proven it's possible. The generator charges the batteries. We can charge while driving. The axle, the kilowatts we use are actually, that was one of the things I was worried about on the pickup trucks. I'm like, doing the math, I'm like, well, it may be a little undersized at 400 horsepower for a pickup. Turns out it's not.
Yeah, and again, saying it is one thing, and making it, proving it is a whole other thing, right? So, and that's my theory. I can build it. We can test it, drive it, and then go from there.
It works. Topsy has its issues. It's had some problems, but it works. It drives. It's a success for what we needed. Now it's time to start building the pickups and the new semi-trucks with the lessons we learned from this.
All right, guys, I want to thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you're looking for more information about Edison Motors, check out our website. We're putting a link somewhere in here. Also, if you can support us through a merch store, that's always appreciated. And honestly, one of the best things you can do is just watch another video. So thanks for watching. Can't wait to get the next one out.